The boy appeared every afternoon at 3:15 and sat on the curb across from Bear's custom cycles, watching the motorcycles with eyes that never blinked. 9 years old, silent, alone. The neighborhood called him the ghost kid because he never spoke, never smiled, just watched. Marcus Bear Thompson noticed him after the third day and brought him water. The kid took it without a word. 2 weeks later, police surrounded the shop demanding the boy. They said his name was Leo Martinez. They said he'd nearly killed a man with a kitchen knife. They said he was dangerous. Bear looked at the terrified child and made a decision that would change everything. Nobody's taking this kid until we hear him speak. Marcus Thompson earned his road name Bear honestly. He was 6 feet 5 inches tall, 320 pounds of muscle and tattoos, with a full beard that reached his chest and hands that could crush beer cans like tissue paper. At 43 years old, he was the newest member of the Devil's Reach chapter of the Hells Angels, having prospected for 2 years before earning his full patch 6 months ago. Bear owned Bear's Custom Cycles, a legitimate motorcycle repair and customization shop that employed 8 mechanics, 4 of them club members. The shop sat on the edge of a working-class neighborhood, where people minded their own business and asked few questions about the men in leather vests who worked on bikes. Bear had built a good reputation in the community. Fair prices, honest work, no trouble. Parents let their kids walk past his shop without fear. The elderly woman next door brought him cookies. The bodega owner down the street gave him discounts. Bear had worked. It's hard to be a positive presence, to show that Hell's Angels weren't the monsters people assumed they were. That's why he noticed when the boy started appearing. Day 3 of the kid's silent vigil, Bear walked across the street during his lunch break, carrying 2 bottles of water. The boy watched him approach with eyes that showed no fear but no trust either. Just observation, calculation, like he was constantly assessing threats and escape routes. Bear sat down on the curb 10 feet away, giving the kid space. "Hot day," Bear said conversationally. "Brought you some water." He set 1 bottle on the ground between them and drank from his own. The boy stared at the water bottle for 30 seconds. Then he reached out quickly, grabbed it, and retreated to his original position. He opened it and drank without taking his eyes off Bear. The entire interaction happened in silence. No thank you. No greeting. No words at all. Bear didn't push. He finished his water, stood up slowly, and went back to the shop. "Same time tomorrow, kid. I'll bring more water." The boy watched him leave but didn't respond. This pattern continued for 2 weeks. Every afternoon at 3:15, the boy appeared and sat on the curb. Every day, Bear brought water and sat nearby without pressuring conversation. Bear learned things through observation. The kid's name was Leo, according to the mailman who mentioned him. He lived 4 blocks away with his mother and her boyfriend. He walked to the shop from school, taking a route that avoided main streets. His clothes were worn and too big. His shoes had holes. He had bruises on his arms that he tried to hide with long sleeves, even in summer heat. Bear asked around the neighborhood carefully, what did people know about Leo Martinez? The answers were consistent and concerning. That kid don't talk. Been mute or something for 2 years since his brother died. His mama works 2 jobs. The boyfriend's a piece of shit. Cops been to that house multiple times for a domestic disturbance, but nothing ever changes. Poor kid's probably seen terrible things. No wonder he don't speak. Bear's protective instincts activated immediately. This was a child in trouble. A child who had stopped speaking because words couldn't express or fix his trauma. A child who watched motorcycles because maybe they represented freedom or power or escape from whatever horror he was living. On day 16, Bear made a decision. When Leo appeared at 3:15, Bear walked over with water and an offer. "Kid, I see you walking here every day. 4 blocks is a long walk in this heat. How about I give you a ride home after school? Make sure you get there safe." Leo's eyes widened. Fear flashed across his face. Then, calculation. Weighing risks against benefits. Finally, very slowly, he nodded once. Bear smiled. "Okay, I'll meet you at your school at 3. We'll ride together. You can trust me. I'm not going to hurt you. I promise." That afternoon, Bear showed up at Lincoln Elementary School at 2:55 on his Harley. Leo emerged from the building at 3:03 with a backpack that looked empty. His eyes found Bear immediately, and something changed in his expression. Not quite a smile, but relief, recognition. He walked over and Bear handed him a helmet. "This is yours now. Custom fitted. Keep it. Leo put the helmet on carefully. Bear helped him climb onto the back of the bike. Hold on tight, okay? We're going to take a little ride. Not just home. Somewhere special first. Bear didn't take Leo straight home. He took him on a ride through the city, letting the kid experience the freedom of wind and speed and open road. They rode for 30 minutes, through neighborhoods and along the waterfront, and past parks where children played. Leo's grip tightened during turns, but never with fear. With excitement, with joy. When they finally arrived at Leo's apartment building, the kid hesitated before getting off the bike. Bear could see him not wanting the ride to end. Same time tomorrow? Bear asked. Leo nodded vigorously. Okay, I'll be here. And Leo, you're safe with me. Always. Over the next 2 weeks, the afternoon rides became routine. Bear picked Leo up from school, took him on routes around the city, and eventually dropped him home. Leo still didn't speak, but he communicated in other ways. Nods, head shakes, hand gestures, and expressions that became more animated as he grew comfortable. Bear noticed other things too. Leo's bruises were getting worse. New ones appeared faster than old ones faded. His clothes were increasingly dirty, like he wasn't being cared for properly. And he was losing weight, his already thin frame becoming skeletal. Bear finally confronted the situation on day 32. When he dropped Leo at his apartment building, a man was standing outside smoking. Late 30s, muscular, aggressive posture. He saw Leo on the back of Bear's motorcycle, and his face twisted with rage. Who the fuck are you? Why is my kid on your bike? Bear recognized the type immediately. Abuser, controller, predator. He kept his voice calm. I'm Bear. I give Leo rides home from school. Make sure he gets here safe. The man, who Bear later learned was named Derek Sloan, stepped closer. I don't want some biker trash around my family. Stay away from Leo. He's mine to deal with. Bear's jaw tightened. Leo's not yours. He's his mother's. And from what I can see, someone needs to look out for him because he's showing up to school bruised and scared. Derek's expression became dangerous. You accusing me of something? Bear met his eyes without flinching. I'm saying Leo deserves better. And if you're the reason he's covered in bruises, then yeah, I'm accusing you of being exactly what you look like. Derek moved to grab Leo, but Bear blocked him, his massive frame creating a wall. Don't touch him. Derek assessed Bear's size and reconsidered. This ain't over, he said, retreating toward the building. Leo stays away from you, and you stay out of my business. He grabbed Leo's arm roughly and dragged him toward the entrance. Leo looked back at Bear with eyes that screamed help, but his voice remained silent. Bear returned to his shop, furious and worried. He called a meeting with his chapter president, Johnny Reaper, Malone, and explained the situation. We've got a kid being abused. Mother's boyfriend is violent. Kid hasn't spoken in 2 years since his brother died. Neighbors say the boyfriend had something to do with it, but nobody's proven anything. And now this bastard is threatening me to stay away from Leo. I can't just walk away. Johnny listened carefully. What do you want to do? Bear's answer was immediate. I want to protect that kid. Whatever it takes. Johnny nodded. Then we protect him. Quietly, carefully. But we protect him. That's what we do. The next day, Bear was waiting at Lincoln Elementary at 3 as usual. Leo emerged and his face showed surprise and relief. You came back, his expression said. Of course I came back, Bear responded. I told you you're safe with me. That means something. Leo climbed onto the bike, and they rode. But this time Bear took him to the Devil's Reach clubhouse instead of home. Inside, 12 Hell's Angels waited. Bear introduced Leo to each one. Leo, these are my brothers. They're here to help protect you. You don't have to be afraid anymore. Stitch, the club's medic, examined Leo with his mother's written permission that Bear had obtained earlier through a teacher who was concerned about Leo's welfare. Stitch documented the bruises, photographed injuries, checked for broken bones and malnutrition. Kid's been abused for months, Stitch reported. Multiple injuries in various stages of healing. Malnourished, underweight. Clear signs of ongoing physical abuse. This needs to be reported to Child Protective Services. Bear nodded. We will. But first, we need to figure out the full situation. Because I think there's more here than just abuse. I think the brother's death wasn't an accident. That's when everything exploded. 2 days after Bear brought Leo to the clubhouse, Police surrounded Bear's custom cycles at noon. 8 patrol cars, lights flashing, officers with weapons drawn. They demanded Leo Martinez be turned over immediately. Bear, standing in the doorway with 5 other club members, refused to move. What's this about? The lead officer, Sergeant Richard Torres, held up a warrant. Leo Martinez is wanted for questioning in connection with the assault of Derek Sloan. Sloan was stabbed multiple times yesterday evening with a kitchen knife. He's in critical condition. The boy is considered armed and dangerous. We have a warrant for his arrest. Turn him over now. Bear's mind raced. Leo had been at the clubhouse yesterday evening under Bear's supervision, which meant whatever happened to Derek occurred while Leo was with the bikers. Sergeant Torres, Bear said carefully. Leo was with me yesterday evening, from 3 o'clock until 8 when I took him home. If Derek was attacked, it wasn't by Leo. Torres's expression was skeptical. So, you're providing an alibi for a mute kid who can't even confirm your story? Convenient. Now step aside or we'll charge you with obstruction. Bear didn't move. I'm not giving you this kid until I understand what actually happened. He's terrified and traumatized, and if you take him into custody without proper representation and support, you'll do more damage. Give us 1 hour to get a lawyer and CPS advocate here. Then we'll cooperate fully. Torres considered this. 1 hour. But the building stays surrounded. Nobody leaves. Nobody enters. And if that kid runs, we're charging everyone here with aiding a fugitive. Understood? Bear nodded. Understood. He returned inside where Leo sat in a back room, surrounded by 6 Hell's Angels who had positioned themselves as human shields. Johnny knelt beside Leo. Kid, we need to understand what happened. Did you hurt Derek? Leo shook his head violently. No, he didn't do it, but he knows who did. Or what happened. We need him to tell us. But he hasn't spoken in 2 years. How do we get him to break his silence? Bear sat down on Leo's other side. Leo, I know talking is hard. I know something terrible happened that made you stop using your words. But right now, you're in danger. The police think you hurt Derek. If you don't tell us what really happened, they're going to take you away. And we can't protect you if we don't know the truth. Please, trust us. Talk to us. Tell us what happened. Leo's eyes filled with tears. His mouth opened and closed several times, trying to form words that hadn't been spoken in 2 years. The Hell's Angels waited patiently, giving him time, creating space for whatever needed to come out. Finally, in a voice so quiet they barely heard it, Leo spoke. 3 words that changed everything. He killed Adam. The room went absolutely silent. Everyone staring at this boy who had just broken 2 years of silence with an accusation of murder. Bear's voice was gentle. Who killed Adam, Leo? Who? Leo's tears streamed down his face. Derek. Derek killed my brother. Pushed him down the stairs. Said it was an accident. Said if I told anyone, he'd do the same to me. So I stopped talking. Because if I didn't talk, I couldn't tell. And if I couldn't tell, he wouldn't kill me too. Johnny leaned forward. Leo, did you stab Derek? Leo shook his head. No. I came home from your clubhouse yesterday, and he was already hurt. On the kitchen floor. Blood everywhere. Mom was crying. Calling 911. Derek saw me and started yelling that I did it. That I stabbed him. But I didn't. I just got there. Someone else hurt him. But he's blaming me because he knows I know what he did to Adam. He's trying to get me arrested before I can tell anyone the truth. Bear looked at Johnny. We need to find out who actually stabbed Derek. And we need to prove what Derek did to Adam. Because if Leo's telling the truth, this isn't about a kid attacking his stepfather. This is about a murderer trying to silence the only witness before the truth comes out. Johnny stood. I'll call our investigator. Get him digging into Adam Martinez's death. Find out what the official ruling was. Find any inconsistencies. The rest of you start asking questions in the neighborhood. Somebody knows something. Somebody saw something. We've got 1 hour before the cops force their way in here. Let's use it. The Devil's Reach chapter mobilized with the efficiency of a military unit. 5 members hit the streets, questioning neighbors, bodega owners, anyone who might have information about Adam Martinez's death 2 years ago. The club's investigator, a former detective named Marcus Gray, pulled records from the police database using connections that weren't entirely legal but were effective. Within 45 minutes, they had a picture that was damning and clear. Adam Martinez, age 13, died 2 years ago from injuries sustained in a fall down the stairs of his family's apartment building. The official ruling was accidental death, but the medical examiner's report, which Marcus obtained through back channels, showed injuries inconsistent with a simple fall. Defensive wounds on Adam's hands, bruises suggesting he'd been grabbed and thrown rather than falling, and a neighbor's statement that had been ignored by investigating officers, saying she heard arguing and then a scream, and then Derek Sloan leaving the building hurriedly 20 minutes before emergency services arrived. Marcus also discovered something else. The detective who investigated Adam's death, Officer James Rivera, was Derek Sloan's cousin. The investigation had been cursory. No follow-up interviews. No questioning of Derek despite his presence in the building when Adam died. The case was closed within 3 days with a ruling of accidental death. It was textbook corruption. Family protecting family while a child's murder went unpunished, and his younger brother was traumatized into silence. But Marcus found something even more interesting in the hospital records from yesterday. Derek Sloan had been stabbed, yes, but the wounds were superficial. Defensive injuries suggesting he had struggled with his attacker but won the fight. And there were traces of DNA under Derek's fingernails, female DNA, not a child's. An adult woman's. Marcus looked at Bear. I think Leo's mother stabbed Derek. I think she finally fought back. And Derek blamed Leo to protect himself and to set up the kid to take the fall. Bear felt rage building. That bastard murdered a 13-year-old, traumatized a 9-year-old into silence, and now he's framing the kid for defending his mother. We need to prove this before the cops take Leo. If he goes into the system with these charges, Derek's family and the police department will make sure he's convicted regardless of evidence. Johnny checked his watch. We've got 10 minutes before Torres forces his way in. What's the play? Bear made a decision. We give them Leo, but we give them the truth too. All of it. The evidence about Adam's murder. The corruption in the investigation. The DNA evidence proving Leo's mother stabbed Derek in self-defense. We lay it all out publicly so they can't bury it. Marcus, can you package everything we found into a report that's airtight? Marcus nodded. Already done. And I've sent copies to 3 different media outlets and the FBI's local field office. If NYPD tries to cover this up, federal agents and journalists will have the full story by tonight. At exactly 1 hour after Sergeant Torres's deadline, Bear walked outside with Leo beside him and Johnny behind them. 12 Hell's Angels formed a protective corridor. Torres stepped forward. The boy comes with us. Now. Bear held up a folder. He comes with you. But first you read this. It's evidence that Derek Sloan murdered Adam Martinez 2 years ago. That the investigation was corrupt because the lead detective was Derek's cousin. That Leo stopped speaking because Derek threatened to kill him too if he told the truth. And that Derek wasn't stabbed by Leo yesterday. He was stabbed by Leo's mother in self-defense after he attacked her. The DNA under Derek's fingernails will prove it. Leo is a witness, not a perpetrator. And if you try to charge him, we've already sent this evidence to the FBI and the media. So you can do this right, or you can do it publicly wrong. Your choice. Torres took the folder and scanned its contents. His face went pale. Where did you get this information? Some of this is confidential police records. Bear's smile was cold. We have friends, and we protect kids. Especially kids who've been failed by the system. Torres looked at Leo, seeing him differently now. Not a dangerous attacker, but a traumatized witness. He pulled out his radio and called his supervisor. We have a situation that requires federal involvement. The assault case against Leo Martinez appears to be connected to an unreported murder from 2 years ago, with evidence of police corruption. Requesting FBI liaison immediately. Within 2 hours, FBI agents arrived and took custody of the investigation. Leo was interviewed in the presence of a child advocate, lawyer, and a trauma therapist. Not in a jail cell, but in a safe environment at a children's hospital. He told his story again, this time recorded officially. How Derek had thrown Adam down the stairs during an argument. How Derek threatened Leo into silence. How Leo stopped speaking because words felt dangerous. How Bear and the Hell's Angels were the first adults who made him feel safe enough to talk. How he had come home yesterday to find his mother standing over Derek with a knife after Derek had tried to choke her. How Derek immediately blamed Leo, knowing that a mute witness was easily discredited. Maria Martinez, Leo's mother, was taken into custody but not arrested. Her statement corroborated and everything. She confirmed Derek had killed Adam. Confirmed he had threatened Leo. Confirmed she had finally fought back yesterday when Derek tried to kill her in a drunken rage. The DNA evidence supported her account. Derek Sloan, recovering from non-life-threatening wounds, was arrested in his hospital bed and charged with murder, assault, child abuse, witness intimidation, and multiple other offenses. Officer James Rivera was suspended pending investigation into his handling of Adam's death investigation. The media coverage was intense and favorable to Leo and the Hells Angels. Local news ran stories about the biker club that protected a silent boy and exposed police corruption. National outlets picked up the story. Devil's Reach chapter that protected traumatized witness when police failed. The narrative was clear. The system had failed catastrophically. A child had been traumatized into silence after his brother was murdered. Police had covered up the crime to protect one of their own. And it took a motorcycle club to do what law enforcement should have done from the beginning: believe a child and investigate the truth. 3 weeks after Leo spoke those 3 words that changed everything, he was living with his mother in a new apartment paid for by a victim's assistance fund. Derek Sloan was in jail awaiting trial. Maria Martinez was not charged, prosecutors determining her actions were clearly self-defense. And Leo was speaking again. Not fluently, not constantly, but speaking, working with a trauma therapist to process 2 years of forced silence and the horrors that caused it. Relearning how to use his voice to express needs and feelings and thoughts. Bear visited Leo and Maria regularly. The unlikely friendship between a 9-year-old trauma survivor and a massive Hells Angel became something deeper. Family. On one visit, Leo asked Bear a question that had been bothering him. "Why did you help me? You didn't know me. You didn't owe me anything." Bear considered his answer carefully. "Because you needed help. And because I know what it's like to feel powerless. I grew up in a bad situation too. Nobody helped me until I was almost too broken to save. I saw you sitting outside my shop every day, and I saw myself, a kid who needed someone to notice, someone to care. I wasn't going to let you disappear the way I almost did." Leo was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that made Bear's throat tighten. "You saved my life. Not just from Derek, from disappearing. I was vanishing, becoming nothing, invisible. And you saw me." Bear pulled the kid into a hug. "You were never invisible, Leo. You were just waiting for someone safe enough to show yourself to. I'm glad it was me." Leo hugged him back. "Can I ask you something else?" "Anything," Bear said. "Will you teach me to ride a motorcycle when I'm older?" Bear laughed. "Absolutely. When you're 16, we'll get you a bike, and I'll teach you everything I know." 1 year after Leo spoke, he stood in front of Lincoln Elementary School's entire student body during an assembly about bullying and speaking up when you see injustice. Leo had been asked to share his story as an example of resilience. He stood at the podium, his mother and Bear sitting in the front row. 12 Hells Angels standing in the back of the auditorium providing silent support. Leo's voice was still quiet, but it was steady, clear, strong in ways it hadn't been before. 2 years ago, I stopped talking. Someone hurt my brother and threatened to hurt me if I told anyone. So I stayed silent. I thought silence would keep me safe, but it didn't. It just made me disappear. I became invisible. Nobody saw me. Nobody heard me. I was dying slowly and nobody noticed. Then I met someone who saw me anyway. Bear saw me sitting outside his shop every day. He didn't ignore me. He didn't assume I was fine. He brought me water. He gave me rides. He made me feel like I mattered even when I couldn't speak. And when things got really bad, he and his friends protected me. They helped me find my voice again." Leo paused, looking at Bear. "People think bikers are scary, dangerous, bad guys. But the scariest-looking person saved my life. The people who were supposed to protect me, the respectable people with authority and power, they failed. They covered up my brother's murder. They didn't believe me when I finally could speak. But the bikers believed me. They investigated. They found the truth. They protected me when nobody else would. So I learned something important. You can't judge people by how they look. You have to judge them by what they do when someone needs help." The auditorium was silent. Leo's voice grew stronger. "If you're being hurt, speak. I know it's scary. I know silence feels safer. But silence protects the people hurting you. Speaking protects you. Tell someone. Tell a teacher. Tell a friend's parent. Tell someone like Bear who will actually listen and help. Don't stay silent for 2 years like I did, because silence hurts more than speaking ever will. I know. I lived it. And the only reason I'm here today is because I finally spoke. 3 words changed my life. He killed Adam. 3 words brought down a murderer. 3 words gave me my voice back. So, use your words. They're more powerful than you think. The assembly erupted in applause. Leo stepped down from the podium and walked straight to Bear, who pulled him into a hug. Proud of you, kid, Bear said quietly. That took courage. Leo smiled. You taught me courage. You taught me that asking for help isn't weakness, that speaking up is strength. Thank you for seeing me when I was invisible. Bear's voice was thick with emotion. You were never invisible to me. You were just waiting for the right person to notice. I'm glad I was that person. 5 years after Leo spoke, he was 14 and thriving. He attended therapy regularly, but his trauma no longer controlled his life. He rode a small motorcycle Bear had helped him build, learning mechanical skills and finding freedom on the road. He volunteered at a children's advocacy center, helping other kids who had been traumatized find their voices. And he maintained close relationships with Bear and the Devil's Reach chapter, these men who had become his chosen family when his blood family had failed him. On the anniversary of the day he first spoke at the clubhouse, Leo asked if he could address the full chapter. 40 Hell's Angels gathered in the Devil's Reach clubhouse, curious about what the kid who had broken his silence in their presence wanted to say. Leo stood before them, confident and comfortable, no longer the terrified mute child they had protected. 5 years ago, I walked into your lives without words. You could have ignored me, could have sent me away, could have decided I was too much trouble. But you didn't. You protected me. You believed me when I finally spoke. You exposed a murderer and saved my life. I don't have enough words to thank you, but I can tell you this. You're not just my friends. You're my family. The family I chose because you chose me first. Bear stood. Leo, you don't need to thank us. You saved yourself by being brave enough to ask for help, by trusting us when you had no reason to trust anyone, by finding your voice when silence felt safer. That's all you. We just provided backup. Leo shook his head. No, you provided everything. Safety, protection, belief. A reason to speak again. Without you, I'd still be silent. Or worse. And I want you to know that when I'm old enough, I want to prospect for this chapter. I want to become a Hell's Angel. Because you showed me what family means, what loyalty means, what protecting people means, and I want to be that for someone else someday. The room erupted in applause and support. Johnny stepped forward. Leo, you're already family. The patch is just fabric. What matters is what you carry inside. Loyalty, courage, the willingness to stand up when others won't. You've already proven you have all that. When you're old enough, we'll be honored to have you prospect. But kid, you're already one of us where it counts. In here. He tapped his chest over his heart. Leo smiled, tears in his eyes. Thank you. For seeing me. For hearing me. For saving me. Bear put his arm around Leo's shoulders. Thank you for teaching us that the most powerful thing you can do is speak the truth even when you're terrified. You reminded us why we do this. Why we protect people. You gave us purpose beyond ourselves. 10 years after Leo spoke, he was 19 and a prospect for the Devil's Reach chapter of the Hell's Angels. He had graduated high school with honors, completed motorcycle mechanic training, and was working at Bear's custom cycles while prospecting for his full patch. He had maintained his therapy and advocacy work, speaking at schools and conferences about childhood trauma and finding your voice. His story had become a case study in resilience, featured in psychology journals and social work training programs. And Derek Sloan was serving life in prison for Adam's murder, with no possibility of parole. On the night Leo earned his full patch, 40 Hell's Angels gathered to celebrate. He knelt before Johnny while Bear stood beside him, pride evident in his massive frame. Leo Martinez, Johnny said formally, you've proven yourself worthy of these colors. You understand loyalty, brotherhood, and protecting those who can't protect themselves. You've earned your place in this family. Welcome to the Devil's Reach. Bear placed the vest on Leo's shoulders, the full patch displayed on the back. Leo stood and looked at the men around him, the family he had found on a curb outside a motorcycle shop 10 years ago. I promise to honor these colors, to protect people the way you protected me. To be the voice for those who can't speak. That's what you taught me. That's what I'll carry forward. Bear pulled him into a hug. You already honor these colors, just by being who you are. A scared kid who found courage. A silent witness who found his voice. A survivor who became a protector. That's what Hell's Angels are supposed to be. You're proof that the system can be broken, and people can be saved if someone cares enough to try. Leo hugged him back. You cared enough. You tried. You succeeded. Thank you for not giving up on me. Bear's voice was rough with emotion. Never. I'd do it all again in a heartbeat. You're my brother now. That doesn't expire. Marcus Bear Thompson rode with the Hells Angels for 23 years. He built a successful business. He mentored prospects. He protected his community. But his defining moment came when he noticed a silent boy sitting on a curb day after day and decided to bring him water instead of ignoring him. That simple act of kindness sparked a chain of events that exposed a murderer, saved a traumatized child, and proved that family is whoever shows up when you need them. Leo Martinez found his voice because Bear made space for silence to transform into speech. And the Hells Angels proved once again that the scariest-looking people can be the safest when someone needs protection. Because sometimes heroism is as simple as seeing someone invisible and refusing to look away until they're safe. That's what Bear did. That's what the Devil's Reach chapter did. And that's why a boy who couldn't speak for 2 years finally said 3 words that changed everything. He killed Adam. Those 3 words brought justice, brought truth, and brought a silent boy back to life. If this story about finding your voice, chosen family, and the courage to speak truth when silence feels safer moved you, hit subscribe and turn on notifications for more stories that prove words have power and family shows up in unexpected forms. Drop a like if you believe that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is break silence even when you're terrified. Here's your question for the comments. If you witnessed injustice but speaking up put you in danger, would you have the courage to talk, or would fear keep you silent? That's the choice trauma survivors face every day. Let's discuss it in the comments below. See you in the next story.